Hello, and welcome to Gender Nebulous. How are you, Freda?
I'm alright, thank you.
Okay, good. I think we're live. Could you please confirm everything is working?
It's working. I'm working.
I think I'm working. So,
Yeah, it's coming through.
it's coming through. Okay.
Loud and clear.
Loud and clear. Now, hopefully we're not going to have the same problems we had last week where my microphone wasn't working. So, can you hear us both? Please give us some positive feedback.
Yeah. Well, as far as I can tell, it's all working all right. So.
Cool. So, welcome to Gender Nebulous. And I almost said Gender Populous. I don't know what's wrong with me today. So, what are you drinking? Yeah, well, tea. Oh, okay, I've got Baileys. It's like rainbow-coloured Baileys. There we go. It's actually milk. It's milk.
It's touched tea with whiskey.
Stephanie's saying hi, saying Freda is quiet.
What have you been up to?
What have I been up to? It's been a really busy week. Last week,
I'm quiet. When am I quiet?
I don't know if she means quiet or volume quiet, but I don't know. Yeah, when are you quiet? Never.
Right, well, I've turned myself up now, so maybe that'll help. Give us some feedback, Stephanie.
Yeah, can you hear us both, Stephanie? Give us a thumbs up.
So yeah, what have you been up to, Victoria?
I've been working this week. It's been a bit of a mad week at work because it's like, yeah, a bit boring. Everything's kind of got to be finished before we all finish. I finish next week. So nothing really exciting at work. It's just been one of those boring weeks. I've been doing lots of.
I never finish.
You've been keeping me busy as well, actually. Can you just do this? Can you just do that on the podcast? Can you just do this on the website? It's like you don't get 5 minutes around here.
Well, I need everything to be looking good. I don't want crappy pictures of me on the website, do I?
Yeah, it's like, can you just change this picture, Vicky? Can you just record that? Can you just do this?
Well, I don't get any time off work, do I? Well, I do now and again, but I'm working right through till Christmas Eve, and then the only day I'm actually off is Christmas Day, and then I'm back in.
All right. So when do you finish for actual Christmas then?
There is no finish for Christmas.
You don't finish for Christmas. You just keep working.
Yeah.
All right.
People don't stop getting ill because it's Christmas.
Okay.
Anyway, apart from that, I'm fine. Yeah. What's happened this week? I've interviewed a couple of people for the podcast.
Yes, you have.
Yeah. Mm.
So we've done a review recording of the one that you did for GB News, which was with Lisa Stansfield.
Not Lisa Stansfield.
Not Stan, no. Yeah. Anyway, Lisa Townsend. I told you it was one of those weeks.
Yeah. Can I find my turflings? Stephanie's saying I'm quiet. Is that right?
I can assure you she's not.
No, I'm not.
Yeah, you're coming through loud and clear on my side.
Well, anyway, what was we saying? Lisa Townsend.
Yeah, so the video we did of kind of going through what was said in the interview you had will be going out on the YouTube on Tuesday. So, bit controversial, we know, but we've kind of gone through all the points that were raised in the video on the news channel thingy.
Yeah, and I've been interviewing people on the gender critical side of the spectrum and talking to people, and it's not because I agree with them or I'm trying to pander to that. What it is, I'm trying to understand where they're coming from, and I had an interview with Sonia Poulton, and today I spoke to Robbie Travers. Now, Robbie Travers is somebody that I'd had a couple of arguments with, and he was quite eloquent though. He was very well spoken, and he's not somebody that is, he has his own opinions, but they're well formed. no matter how wrong they are. You've got to, So I thought he might be. The reason I wanted to talk to him because he wasn't somebody that's just like nasty. He has a political platform, and he does have some kind of influence.
Yeah. So, I mean, that one will probably do the same thing with that one and stick it out in a couple of weeks' time, I think. Anyway, coming up this weekend, we have the Gender Nebulous Christmas party, don't we? Oh, so that's not a party. From the pub? You think they're going to let us do that? Anyway, we have been talking a lot about custard tarts. I just wanted to introduce you, Freda, to the Portuguese version. So here you go. Here is a Portuguese custard tart. Whoops, it's gone out of... So it's almost the same as a Mr. Kipling's or whatever you eat. Grenages. Oh, right, those are good. I think they call them pastel de natas. They're not called custard tarts. So anyway, I just happened to be in a place that sells them, and I thought, oh, I'll get some of those. It's Christmas. Got me custard tarts. Got me bottle of Baileys. Do I know about what we're eating and drinking? Yes, probably not. Yeah, put them on the shelf. Topics? Do you want some topics? Oh shit, hang on. We have indeed. So the first one that I wanted to talk about was it was about something that's been going on in Singapore. It's related to British rule and colonialism. What's happened over there is that they have overturned, repealed a law called 377A. It was an anti-LGBT law. It has been overturned, turned a page on their dark history. Now, the interesting thing about this story really is the fact that the reason why that law was in place in the first place was because of British colonialism. And yeah, so I mean, you see this all over the world still, that there's a lot of countries that still have anti-LGBT laws because of, they used to be under British rule. Yeah, it's interesting how it only kind of applies to gay men as well. They never seem to talk about lesbians. It's always, maybe that's just because women just didn't used to matter in those days, and they just didn't bother,
Like the women really had to control things because the men were out of control for whatever reason, because of maybe the traumas of war and having absent fathers and things like that. Then women had to control the household. But politically, and you find this the world over, really, it's like that those views are suppressed because they know how kind of I think it comes down to a kind of this idea of guilt to do with your past and things like that. I think there's a lot of that to do with it. So like with colonialism, the British went into these places and brought their Christian values and the Catholic whatever. So that's what distorts the view.
Yeah.
So somewhere like Singapore or anywhere really where there's been a British influence tends to follow the same kind of pattern.
Okay, so they were just saying in the chat that they couldn't hear you at all, and now you're coming through again. So I just added a different microphone feed.
Well, you can't hear me now. Oh,
no, you can. It's Stephanie saying that she can't hear you. Can you hear me clearly as well, Stephanie?
Well, it's a good job Stephanie's there, isn't it?
So make sure we've got a good feed coming through.
Yeah, but like this thing about another thing about colonialism is who writes the histories. So like when you look when say the BBC News write a story about LGBT history, it's not just LGBT history, it's the whole history of the place. It's only through this lens that we actually see the truth of things. Because there are probably a lot of people who are not gay and not bisexual or not lesbian that were just as oppressed by British colonial. This is this idea I always say about the high tide lifts all boats.
Yeah, I love that phrase that you have there. It's really
because when you look at things through this kind of lens of racial issues or LGBT issues, that brings light to all the other oppressions.
Yeah.
And it's not saying that being gay gives it's like a special kind of ticket to freedom. It just means that people are actually looking now at what happened in those times, and you'll hear it all the time on like right-wing news channels, this idea of when they say wokery, and they'll say that they're putting trigger warnings on books and things like that. And what they're doing when they look at those books, when they look at the history books, all that's happening is some historian has realised there needs to be a caveat on that book, and they'll put a little note in the book and say this author is speaking from a very racially biased perspective, which is true. It doesn't mean we're going to get rid of the book. It just means we're going to put a note on the front of this book, so when students read it, they've got a better understanding of the time and place it existed in. So when you read a book from, say, 1956, it will have a little note in the front to say, this book contains racial stereotypes and racial narratives that are not representative of today. And then what will happen is the Times or the Daily Mail will say, they're rewriting history. No, they're not. They're just putting a little note in the history book. They should be rewriting history, to be honest, because it should be including everybody. But all they're doing is putting a little note in a book and saying, dear students, please read this from a better perspective. And that's the only thing that's happening. But they'll play it out like it's some kind of rewriting of history, that we should be proud of our colonial past. Why are they doing down the idea of Britishness? No, we're actually having a look at Britishness and we're saying, you know what? We were fucking awful to some people and we should face up to that fact. Now, there's nothing wrong with facing that fact. And if you can't face it, there's something lacking in your imagination.
Yeah, I'm not sure what's going on with my microphone now, but we're getting wicked echo.
I think we're having a few technical issues.
We're definitely having a few technical issues here with the microphones.
Well, we'll just carry on regardless, and we'll just muddle on because that's what we do. So yeah, I think with this story, it's all about colonialism, isn't it?
It is. Okay, the echo's gone for me now. I hope people can still hear me. So the next story on the list here was it's to do with police call to an anti-trans activist, activities from friendly protesters waving and smiling. So this was a story that is coming from the film that's been made called Adult Human Female, documentary which claims to be in defence of women's rights and was created by Reality Matters Productions. So they were screening this film. I think it was somewhere in Nottingham, Sherwood Methodist Church, and there was a small group of trans people and allies gathered outside the venue to protest the screening. Some of the gender crits had asked for police protection from these people who were basically just clapping and waving flags. The church eventually they cancelled the event before it was started because they found out what the content of the film was. So, they thought, they were told it was just going to be about women's rights and domestic violence, but it was basically a film about all the normal gender critical talking points. And have you watched it, Freda?
I have watched it, and the point is here that the people that promote this will promote it from the point of view of women's rights and sexual violence, because that's their way in.
Yeah.
They don't actually, like, when I've looked at this film, Adult Human Female, the title is a dog whistle in itself.
It is.
And what the film seeks to do, essentially, is form a catalogue of arguments that will exclude trans women from certain spaces or certain situations, and that's the only motivation. And one of the funders for this film is Sex Matters, Mayor Forstater's little crew.
Yeah.
And they're pushing this, and that's where it's coming from. And there's a few things in this film that really bother me. There's the keep prisons single sex thing. There's the idea of women's sexual violence, refuges and things. But they've picked people who isolated incidents to make an argument. So rather than looking at it as a holistic, as a whole situation, they have to find the isolated incident where this is a problem. Now, it goes through the usual talking points: sports, single sex spaces and prisons, but the main thrust of it really is an anti-trans film. Now, I wish they would just be honest about that. I wouldn't have a problem. I mean, I'd have less of a problem if they just said from the outset, we are an anti-trans organisation.
So they've obviously tried to tell this church it's something else, which is that's a bit underhand, isn't it?
Yeah, but why can't they just be? If they believe in the message,
if they believed in it 100%, they wouldn't need to do that, would they? Obviously.
Yeah, why hide behind this idea of protecting women? Because they're not protecting anyone. They're actually harming the causes that they pretend to care about. I'm no expert in any of these things, but I've had to look into them, and I've had to look at prisons, and I've had to look at single sex spaces and safeguarded, and I've had to look at what's the other one? Sports. Yeah. And in no other situation would I be researching that kind of thing. But all I find every time is there are one or two incidents, there are one or two cases where that's a problem, and that is really a serious issue. But it's a serious issue for a very small minority of people. Now, what these films and what those people try to do is make that issue a threat to the whole of society at large, and it doesn't work, because if they were honest and they did say that's what they wanted to do, they wouldn't be able to make any inroads.
So the directors of this film were Deirdre O'Neill and Michael Wayne. Now, I've never heard of these two before.
Well, Deirdre...
Do you know anything about them?
Yeah, I know a little bit of research that I did about Deirdre and Wayne, but I couldn't find much about the Wayne... What's he got? Sorry.
Michael Wayne.
No, I couldn't find much about him, but Deirdre O'Neill has been on some podcasts where she thinks that she talks about transgenderism, and she talks about the trans movement, and she talks about that as a kind of middle class, like it's some kind of bourgeois kind of, affected kind of aberration, where it's not. I mean, I'm from fucking Falmouth, for fuck's sake, it's not a class issue. But it's they want to make it that, because I think Julie Bindel does that a lot. Julie Bindel,
yeah, I mean, Julie Bindel, Jean Hatchett, Simon Edge have all had a hand in this thing, I believe. And it says contributors. Let me just read out what it says here. Contributors to the film, which claims to be the first UK documentary feature to look at the clash between women's rights and trans ideology, includes Simon Edge, who wrote an entire book comparing those who support trans rights to flat earthers, and Julie Bindel, who once wrote that trans women go to gender reassignment clinics to have their breasts sliced off and a penis made out of their beer bellies. So, those are the kind of people who are involved in this.
Yeah, but Simon Edge is somebody that, I mean, he's one of those people. I think his degree is in philosophy. And that sort of reminds me of that Kathleen Stock kind of thing, where they have this kind of ideas of, postmodernism and things like that, where people who are trans, it's a kind of abstraction. It's like where reality meets these abstract ideas of the self. And I mean, I could talk about this for hours, because I actually studied this kind of stuff, where there is no absolute truth and things like that, because that's what you study when but there is absolute truth. There is biology, there is reality, but what they want to say is that it's a bourgeois idea. Being trans is a kind of idea of contemporary fashion, in a way. And it isn't, because even though, because you could say that on a timeline, trans people, like the language around trans people has developed, because if you go back 100 years, it probably didn't exist, but so didn't a lot of the language around medical things didn't exist. A lot of the treatments for a lot of diseases and a lot of problems with the body and things. It's only in recent times that we've been able to do anything about them. But because they have this kind of weird filter in the brain which considers the modern experience or the postmodern experience to be a fake one, but it's not. It's just it's just a reality that we exist in, which is contestable, right? If you know what I'm saying with that, it's not to say that people who are trans are not real. It's just to say that it exists in a world where it's a philosophical idea and a psychological one. So you can have a debate about it, where you can't necessarily have a debate about other things because they're solid, and biology is solid in the sense that we are born what we are. The sum of our flesh is different. Like this idea, the sum of your flesh is what you are, right? Would be the the traditional way of looking at sex, but we know that's not true.
So Jean Hatchett described the protesters as men and their handmaidens determined to intimidate, and as idiots banging their drums to drown out women. Strangely, the video she posted of protesters showed smiling faces, people waving, and no drums. So,
Well, we know exactly then what that means. It's total nonsense. As far as I can read.
Yeah.
So yeah, it just feeds into this idea that
Feeds into the same old narratives.
well, some people, I think what it is, some people, there are traditionalists and there are authoritarians who still believe that they can hold on to they can still dictate to people what they are as whatever,
So a message just on the screen here from Stephanie. Simon Edge is good friends with Kathleen Stock.
I'm pretty sure he is. Yeah. I mean, it doesn't surprise me. Whatever, they're all good friends with each other. You know what I mean?
It kind of all goes back. Remember that picture at that restaurant? You know, if you were to grab that picture again and look at all these people on there, what I would love to do is have a kind of a map of all these kind of main names that we seem to come up all the time, and how they're all interconnected with each other. I would love to see that in a kind of like a police detective format.
Would you mean like a crazy wall?
A crazy wall. Yeah, exactly. I'd like to see that. You think you could start working on for me, Freda?
But that does exist. It exists already. I mean, if you look at the Twitter data as a raw data file and look at who is most popular with who, and you can put that into a machine that can show you,
that can map it out for you into a visual map.
Yeah, it's unbelievably precise, because you've got J.K. Rowling, you've got, they all follow J.K. Rowling.
Yeah, but it would be nice to see it in a visual presentation, because all these names get batted around, and it's difficult to keep up with, like who's who and what they do and who they're connected to behind the scenes. I struggle with that.
If you think about it, like, do you know the tube map of London?
Yeah, that's what we need. We need the turf version of that.
If you think of like the central line, then you've got your big turfs. J.K. Rowling is the centre.
So Euston Station is JKR Central.
Yeah, whatever. And then you've got your more sort of provincial stations, and they're all connected, and they all share the same line, and they all share the same interconnections, and but the thing is with that, what is the focus? What is the point of their existence? And it's never good, is it? It's never a positive outcome. Nobody's.
Well, all these people, they have their jobs, don't they? They all have their, like, a lot of them seem to be authors or professors or this, that, and the other. They all have the kind of day jobs, but as a kind of I don't know if it's a hobby or it's just kind of something they do on the side, but it seems to be unrelated to their jobs, that they're also,
Well, I suspect there's
gender critical. Is there some kind of other connections I'm not seeing there?
Another thing is, like, and I think about, like, because my education is in art and that kind of criticism. So it's like the history of ideas, like so the way ideas work in the culture is like somebody, like they think that being trans is just an idea. It's not innate. It's just something that somebody's imagined, which it isn't. We know it isn't, because it goes back long enough for psychiatrists and psychologists to have documented in different ways, but they see it as purely as an idea, like they see cubism or
so they're trying to make it into an ism. This is probably why they call it transgenderism.
Yeah, so cubism, say impressionism, in a kind of abstract way, it becomes an idea to them. It's not a real thing.
So is this kind of where they're, we always hear them talk about it being trans as an ideology, or transgenderism.
Well, that's slightly different.
I guess it kind of has its roots in that somewhere.
Well, it's slightly different when you say ideology, because ideology infers a kind of political aim, and we know they think that
you can have a religious ideology, can't you?
Yeah, but religious ideas do have a political aim, and but the difference between an ism and an ideology is that an ism is just the collection of an idea, where an ideology is the motivation. It's like the destination of that idea. So like say you've got like an ideology is communism, an ideology is capitalism, but we go along with them. We don't necessarily agree with them, and they become part of the culture and they become part of our lives. But we accept them, and we don't. It's like, oh, I don't know. I mean, it's hard to say for sure where that will lead, but we know that certain ideologies lead to bad places. Like say Nazism is an ideology. But also feminism can be an ideology. It doesn't necessarily mean it's a bad thing.
Mm-hmm.
But when you're totalitarian in your ideology, that is the bad thing. So you've got to be on. It's like, when people say if you're capitalist or socialist, right? There's nobody who is completely capitalist unless you're like some kind of Ayn Rand on acid. And there's nobody who's completely socialist. Well, there might be completely, but most people exist in the equilibrium of those two things, and that's society. That is the experiment that we call democracy. And within all that is ideology, and there is isms, communism, socialism, and then all the artisms. But transgenderism isn't one of them, because being trans, we don't opt into it. We don't decide one day, oh, I like the sound of that. You know what I mean? No. It doesn't work like that.
It's interesting how they never refer to people who are gay as being, a gayism.
Well, no, because they would argue that perhaps genetic, perhaps there's a genetic basis for that. But maybe then you get into eugenics, and that's a very dark place.
We don't want to go there.
Yeah. So what to sum that little bit of waffle up?
Yeah, a bit of a rabbit hole there.
To sum that little bit up is what it is. It's like when we latch ourselves onto things as human beings because we need to sort of pin up. We need to fly a flag basically that says I belong to this group of people, because I identify with this group of people. But that is distinct from being innately a trans or gay or bi or lesbian or black or Muslim. You could be all of those things and never ever fly a flag. But when you start, you can opt into that. And that's the difference. I mean, I know that's a lot of waffle.
So it's really kind of what you consider to be fact, and what you argue is a kind of an ideology or an ism. On the other hand, you can't argue with facts, can you? So that kind of the debate is being trans factual, in a way.
Well, it's factual to me. I mean,
it's factual to me too, but the people on the other side don't believe it is.
Well, they probably think they could be talked out of it.
Mm.
That's the problem. See, like if you say, this is the thing with the trans children thing, they think that there's an ideology that is teaching children to be trans. That's never going to happen. You can't. It's not a reality. It's
like saying you're going to teach someone to be straight.
But the whole culture wants you to be straight. So if you were going to be indoctrinated, if it was possible to indoctrinate somebody, everybody would be straight. Everybody would be cis, because that's the dominant culture.
Exactly.
You have to really fight. You have to go against the grain so hard to be trans. You have to go against the grain to be gay.
You do.
And it's not something that is going to just drop into your inbox and suddenly, oh my God, I'm trans. because some fucking because some advert on YouTube or whatever, you know what I mean? The whole thing is ridiculous.
Anyway, getting back to the London Underground idea, map or thereof. If you could work on that, please, Freda, and send it through to me. Thank you.
Well, Yeah, do you know what? That'd be a brilliant thing to do. There was an artist, I can't remember his name, but there was an artist that made a map of all the big artists. You know, they like Andy Warhol, Jackson Pollock, and
Mm-hmm.
Pablo Picasso. He made like a tube map of
A tube map of
artists.
artists. Oh, that'd be cool. Never
Yeah,
seen that.
so that's where I got that idea. That's how that idea
Mm-hmm.
came to me. So that'd be something to do. Yeah, I
Yeah.
might do that.
Yeah, put that on your list when you're not doing anything
But
else.
see, I know I'm talking a lot like I normally do. So sorry.
No, you're on a bit of a roll there, so I'll let you go. So anyway, next story is Eddie Izzard, our friend Eddie. So Eddie,
Oh, I love Eddie.
I love Eddie too. Eddie put on her Twitter account a post recently. I think it was at the beginning of the week. I want to congratulate. It's a lady called, excuse my pronunciation, but I think it's Abstium Mohammed on her victory in the Sheffield.
Abstium Mohammed.
Yeah, that's what I tried to say. In the Sheffield Central selection contest, she'll make a fine MP, and I look forward to campaigning with her in the months and years to come. So Eddie, she's not been selected by the Labour Party. I don't know how that selection process works, whether it's an internal local vote by the Sheffield Central team. I don't know how it works, but yeah, Eddie's not been selected. I know they have long lists and short lists. I'm not sure how all that works, but Eddie put a really nice message on Twitter congratulating the winner. I think that's really nice of Eddie to do that.
It's interesting because like I said before, this phrase that I like, the high tide lifts all boats.
Yeah.
This is a good example of that because when somebody like Eddie Izzard comes into politics and brings that kind of attention, I mean, I'm a bit sort of dubious. I was a bit dubious about Eddie Izzard because I find she is a bit performative in the sense she's a comedian. And I don't know. I wasn't sure if she was a serious politician. She's doing it for attention, maybe, and there's an element of that in politics, right? But I think it's great that a Muslim woman has won this, and I don't think that would have brought the attention to her if she hadn't had Eddie around there, because
that's true. Because Eddie kind of brought in all the world attention, didn't he? And
well,
now
Eddie can still be present in that in that world, in the political world.
Well, Eddie has said that she's going to work with this person who's hopefully going to win. So yeah, they're going to work together, which is great.
But it's great that they're going to work together. Because as trans people, we're all like, oh yeah, there's a trans woman running for office, and we're all going to get around.
I mean, it doesn't really matter who the person is. It's around the policies, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. But I always say, with these things, what is the motivation of the individual? Yeah. Do they want to? Because I have no doubt that Miss Mohammed is genuinely focused on the community.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I don't doubt that. But with Eddie, I was a bit dubious. I've got to admit that, because she's not, she's from a celebrity world. But I think
she's always been kind of making political kind of statements on issues. I think she's always been politically active. I would have liked to seen Eddie get that position. But
it would have been
interesting. Would have been great, maybe.
And it would have shook up a few things, but
we've still never had a trans MP elected. There is one in Parliament, isn't there, currently, who transitioned whilst they were an MP, but there's never been one voted in, as far as I know.
I mean, it's hard with political parties because, I mean, when people say politically homeless, I always find that really disingenuous, because we're all somewhere politically.
Yeah, you just might not have anybody who represents your views.
I prefer the phrase political nomad, because sometimes I agree with the Labour Party, sometimes I agree with the Lib Dems, I never agree with the Tory. But there might be somebody in the there might be a conservative out there. Imagine if the Conservatives had a trans candidate. Now,
well, they do. I mean, in the next election, they will. If I can't remember the name of the trans individual.
Do you mean Jamie Wallace?
Jamie Wallace.
Oh, no, I'm not buying that for 1 minute. But
I'm not sure if Jamie Wallace is going to stand in the next election, but they still haven't changed the gender. Or
I'm not commenting.
Carry on.
I'm not commenting specifically on individuals. What I'm saying is, would your political stance change if there was a trans candidate in a specific party?
Well,
no, it wouldn't.
If somebody's trans or LGBT or whatever, it's not really who they are sexually or gender identity wise that I'm interested in. It's their policies and what they want to do and what they want to change. That's what I'm interested in. If they happen to be trans or they happen to be gay or lesbian, so what?
Yeah, so that was my exact point with Eddie Izzard, right? Because I do like Eddie Izzard as a person.
Yeah, regardless.
And it
of
wouldn't
else.
matter what party they were part of.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, I'd be disappointed if Eddie was to join the Conservatives, because I think that was a bit weird. But you know what I mean? It's like, this is the policy, this is the world we live in now, where I think this is what happened with Trump, it's what happens with Johnson. It's like people look at people as personalities, and I think that's the problem, because it can be factional. Whereas somebody could be trans and be a complete arsehole. Like if I run for office, people are like, I'm not voting for that bitch. But I'd be like, you know what? My policies would always be free carpet for the under 25s.
Free carpet. Okay.
Yeah. I just think of really mad policies. You can't eat cheese on Sundays.
I'm not voting for you then. So that.
I don't know. I'm just being daft because I just find the whole thing ridiculous.
So you're a whiskey drinker, aren't you?
I'm a vodka drinker. I'm a whiskey drinker.
So have you seen did you see the advert that was put out by J&B? I think it's
Yes, I did see this.
It's about bourbon. It's about bourbon whiskey brand JB.
Yeah.
I'm not sure who owns that company. It's probably one of those big organisations. Their parent company. I'm not sure who they are. But anyway, they've put out this advert. It was a really nice ad.
Did you like it?
Yeah, it was kind of. It was one of those typical Christmas tear jerky kind of adverts. So yeah, it plucks away at the old heartstrings, doesn't it?
Right, you've got to separate the film.
Oh, Stephanie's saying she'd vote for you, by the way.
Oh well, everybody would vote for me. But what I want to say about this film, you're
supposed to say thank you, Stephanie. But okay.
Thank you, Stephanie.
Yeah.
But what I was going to say, you've got to separate the film from the product.
It's not really a film. It was
an
advert.
It's a film because but it's an artist is commissioned to make this film.
Yeah, so
and you've got to think about what is the brief.
We should just say what the advert was. It was it's actually I think it's in Spanish. I don't think it's being shown in the UK, but it's available online. Follows an elderly person who initially borrows their wife's lipstick before putting together their own makeup kit and escaping to a bathroom to apply a full face. As a Christmas advert, so it is a Christmas advert, progresses, we see them grow more accepting of themselves, and although heartwarmingly already, someone manages to become, even sweeter. So what happens towards the end of the advert is that their trans granddaughter arrives, initially introduced as Alvaro, but they immediately recognise a kindred spirit and shares their makeup, with them. They both walk back out to the rest of the family. Alvaro's true name, Anna, appears on the screen, and what follows is a beautiful moment of intergenerational bonding and family acceptance, and everybody starts to cry, and that's the end of the advert. And then, please buy JB Bourbon Whiskey. So, yeah, it's
right.
It's an advert at Christmas to make everybody's heartstrings get pulled, and then here's a product.
Yeah, I mean, I've always been cynical about advertising and any kind of brand-led emotional blackmail.
Emotional blackmail.
So if you want to sell me whiskey, fine, but don't make me cry. So I need whiskey.
So okay, so if you don't want any emotion or blackmail in your kind of adverts. So if somebody wanted to sell you a bottle of whiskey, how would they go about it, Freda?
They'd say, "Here's some whiskey.
Here's some whiskey. Here's the price. Give me your money."
It's cheaper than the other one. Look, it'd be like, "Listen, Tranny, do you want some whiskey?" I'm just very cynical about this kind of tear-jerky advertising, because my first principle is that all advertisements are lies, and brands want you to cry, and then
it's like the John Lewis advert every Christmas. Everybody cries to that.
If it wasn't an alcohol advert, I might be more charitable towards the thing. But it's like, what is the message? It's like, I mean, I like the film as a film. It exists. The person that was commissioned to make the film did a bloody good job. I'm not going to deny that.
Their sales will probably go through the roof because of it. So yeah, great job.
But my point is, I don't want to be manipulated to buy a product by being emotionally blackmailed by visual cues. That is just how I feel about it. So it's like when my mum watches stuff on the telly.
Could I sell you some custard tarts, by the way? Would you like to buy a custard tart?
Well, maybe if there was a custard tart advert. But you see, I'm already predisposed to custard tarts.
You see, the truth is coming out. The truth is coming out. Freda has emotional ties to custard tarts, and she will buy them based on any advert.
So I am a bit cynical about it, but I mean, the film within itself, the film is lovely, but it's this wrapper of trying to sell me some booze. I mean, like, you don't have to sell me booze. I'm straight down to fuck. If there's £5 off something at Booze Busters, I'm there. You know what I mean?
So basically, what you're saying is that this company is wasting millions of pounds producing this advert where they should have just given you a lift to the shop, basically.
Yeah, so they're going to make a load of alcoholics out of trans people. I mean, imagine if they were this advert would work better if they were selling, I don't know, intravenous heroin.
Other products aren't available, by the way.
I'm not saying train spotting level drug abuse, but I'm saying if you want to sell a product, you want to market it to trans people, don't use alcohol. We're already emotionally disturbed. Anyway, that's my opinion.
Okay.
Sorry.
So anyway, Feliz Navidad for JB España. Well done.
Well done on the film. Yeah, I'm going to look up who's the director, because she did a very good job there. Anyway, what's the next thing?
The next one. What's the next one?
Next.
That's enough for that one.
Supreme Court to decide if Christian woman is just another Christian woman.
Yeah, it's about a Christian woman, So this is a US story.
Christian woman.
I thought Cliff Richard had walked in then. So this is a US Supreme Court have decided to go forward with a case in February to decide if a Christian woman can refuse work for same-sex couples. US Supreme Court has been tasked with deciding whether an anti-LGBTQ woman can turn queer people away from her business. Web designer Laurie Smith has claimed Colorado's LGBTQ inclusive non-discrimination law violates her Christian beliefs in choosing not to serve same-sex couples. So this is going to go before the Supreme Court in February next year. And it's kind of, I guess it's a kind of a free speech kind of thing. I don't know. I just find it.
Well, let me just.
And here's another case in the US where they're trying to take away.
Let me just say this, right? If this lady doesn't want to provide services for LGBTQ plus whatever, let her, and we can go somewhere else. I mean, if this is such a non-story. I mean, the Supreme Court should not even be involved in this. If this she's a web designer.
So she's some of the lawyers behind her, Alliance Defending Freedom, ADF, the anti-LGBT organisation.
It's a lobby group.
Vows to uphold constitutional freedoms.
Yeah, I mean, she's
so
definitely.
I think it's a first rights amendments kind of thing.
Right, let me just say, right, I don't even know who Laurie Smith is.
No, you wouldn't know unless that's the story had been.
But I can guarantee you, right, I'm going to do a little experiment live. This is a live experiment. If I Google Laurie Smith, she won't be just a web designer. She'll be involved in some lobby groups. Let me just do it now. Right, so Laurie Smith, Google, who is she? Right. So she's already on the Catholic News Advocacy website.
Yeah, well, we know she's religious.
Oh, Catholic News Advocacy got nothing to do with being a religious person. It's a lobby group.
Yeah.
And the reason they've got into the news is because they want to create a division, create some kind of hoopla about this story. That's all it is. And it's the same thing like with, the whole story with, Lisa Townsend, when she says she doesn't want trans people to be police officers. Well, she didn't say that. She doesn't want trans people to be able to search. But technically, that's what she's saying.
Well, I mean, effectively, she's saying, the trans women shouldn't be doing this. They shouldn't be doing that. I mean, it makes you kind of wonder, okay, what are they allowed to do?
Yeah, but when I use the phrase performative argument, this is a performative argument. It's got nothing to do with the thing the news says it's about.
Yeah.
It's somebody standing on a soapbox.
It's another story made up. Yeah.
It's a story. It's a meta narrative. You've got to.
I don't think she's actually had anybody come to her asking her to do anything anyway. So it's just
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. There's just no problem there.
So
but they've created a problem because they need to put a fear in people.
So the lawyers behind her, in their opening argument, have said it's a bedrock law that the First Amendment protects. It's an artist's right to choose what they say and when to remain silent. Artists should not be coerced by the government to make art they disagree with. Colorado has gone too far in censoring Christian artists like Laurie Smith to publish messages they disagree with. Blah, 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 blah.
Well, if the thing is, though, there's an argument to be made about art. When it becomes a matter of artistic expression. But you see, the very people that would be championing this, oh yes, we've got to let artists have expression. They don't want the artist to have expression when they say something they disagree with. So the Balenciaga advert is artistic expression.
We'll come to that.
So you know what I'm saying about that. So there's a lot of dubious things goes on in art, the name of artistic expression. But what you'll find is these Christians will only defend that artistic expression when it's saying something
to religion.
Yeah, when it's saying something they want to hear. So artistic expression is so nebulous an idea. It renders it meaningless. Because I could do a painting, right, that features, it's kind of, abhorrent imagery, things you would find offensive. And I say, it's artistic license, right? Artistic license is a thing, you can, there's a lot of imagery in art where you would go, oh my God, that's a bit dodgy. There are paintings hanging in the National Gallery that you could look at and go, oh God, that's a bit, but Christians have been fighting that for years. The idea of nudity, the idea of sexual perversion in art. I'm trying to think of a famous artist. Like, if you look at, I don't know. I mean, I'm trying to think of a popular image. Like, if you look at Salvador Dali, there's a lot of fetish imagery in there. There's a lot of sex in that, and tits and arses, and Christians would be against that from the outset. But they would never say that to that, oh, well, we want to defend your artistic expression. You know, they only want to defend what they like. Anyway,
so some of the comments coming from the other side, the other legal team, the Human Rights Campaign legal director Sarah Warbelow, sounds an interesting name. If a business is open on Main Street, it must be open to everyone, regardless of who they are or whom they love. At its core, this case is a cynical effort to manipulate the First Amendment in order to provide a license to discriminate against LGBTQ people and our families. A business owner's personal beliefs should never be reason enough to discriminate against a customer.
Well, there you go. I mean, I agree with that.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like this kind of the idea of like, when people didn't want to make a cake for some gay men.
Yeah, it's the same story recycled. Well, I've been drinking. Jeez.
If you don't want the cake, don't eat it. Somebody else will make the cake for you. Just get on with life.
Yeah, go somewhere else.
I'll make a cake. I'll make a cake in the size of a 6-foot dildo if it makes you happy.
Oh dear. There's a thought.
That's not what I wanted to end that topic on.
No.
There we go.
Moving on swiftly. A couple of our Baroness friends have been in the news.
Oh, more Baronesses.
So once again, Baronesses in the news. I don't know where all these Baronesses come from.
Baroness Sourpuss hates trans people again.
Last week we were talking about Baroness Hussey and the racist comments she was making at that event at, well, I'm not sure where it was, the royal thing.
Yeah, with Ngozi Faloni.
Yeah. This week we've got a lady called Michelle Mone, Mone. Be careful how you say it.
I'm sure these are made up names.
So we had a hussy last week, and now we've got a moaning Baroness this week.
Moaning. We've got a moaning hussy.
So,
oh my God.
Conservative peer, I guess a peer.
I feel like I'm living in a soap, like a comedy.
Soap opera,
you know what I mean?
Yeah. It is a soap opera. It's called Gender Nebulous. Conservative peer, Michelle Mone, to take leave of absence from Lords.
Are you pronouncing that right? Are you sure it's not Mone?
It's Mone. M-O-N-E, Mone.
Right, okay.
Put a Y on the end, it'd be money.
Well, yeah.
So
anyway,
she's requested leave of absence from the Lords to clear her name amid allegations she benefited from a company she recommended for a COVID contract. So this is she was linked to PPE sales, MedPro, which won a government contract during the pandemic, and apparently she'd recommended this company, and sounds like she's been taking some backhanders.
Well, I've got 3 words for this.
3 words? Is that all? It's not like you.
And it's tip of iceberg.
Tip of iceberg, indeed.
The people that you know about are the people that have let slip. You know, like this whole PPE thing and COVID contracts. I mean, this runs deep, and it's all. I don't know. I mean,
so now there's a formal inquiry going into what's happened here. Yeah,
it'd be interesting to see what happens with that. But how many times have we heard this about an inquiry and then late?
Yeah, how do these people? First of all, how do they get these jobs? How do they become, in the House of Lords? Peers?
Never mind. How do they sleep at night?
If you had that kind of money, I don't think you'd be worrying about that, would you?
I mean,
but it's just like another example of somebody who's rich and privileged, getting into this position and then, falling foul of their own behaviour.
I mean, I can't sleep if I shortchange somebody in Greggs.
Well, you better don't become a peer then,
But it's like these people, you're talking about billions of pounds.
I think we're a long way from seeing Baroness Wallace.
No, you never know.
We'll see.
But if I was a Baroness, I wouldn't make it because I'm too nice. I'm too honest.
You're too nice to Baroness?
You've got to be some kind of malevolent Machiavellian Is that a word?
Yeah, talking of which, that brings us swiftly on to our second Baroness.
Another one.
Emma Harriet Nicholson.
Not that one again.
The Baroness that's been in the news quite a lot, the one that's been pretty nasty towards trans people recently. So there was a Twitter post from the Samaritans. I shall read it to you. Research shows that trans people have higher rates of self-harm and suicide than cisgender people. One study found trans people were at twice the risk of suicide attempts compared to cisgender females and 4 times compared to cisgender males. And the Baroness, in her wisdom, because they're very wise, these Baronesses, aren't they? She says, actually, you're wrong. I suggest you research more cautiously, or you may face difficulties in convincing your supporters on your other promotions and marketing. So basically, she's kind of threatening them with, we're going to take away your funding if we can, because you've supported trans people. It's like, come on.
Well, this is what happened here. Baroness Nicholson, we know, Emma Harriet Nicholson is friends with J.K. Rowling, the wizard lady we never talk about.
LGBT Alliance.
But she's very much, and then she's gone like this. She's gone, oh, what is this? Oh, they like trans people. They've mentioned trans people. I can't be having this. I'll have to put my 2 penneth in.
Yeah.
And it's like, no, you picked the wrong fight to have there, baby. Because this
Fighting
is
with
the
the Samaritans. Can you imagine? An organisation that does nothing else, that helps people in dire straits, suicide prevention, and she's attacking them.
What is she actually saying here? I mean, it's like the Samaritans. I mean, I couldn't think of anything. I mean, I don't know much about them as a charity, but I know they're there on the phone for people that are in the most desperate situation. Yeah. Like if you're somebody that needs to ring the Samaritans, I should imagine you're not. It doesn't matter if you're trans or not. Mm-hmm. It's not. That's not the problem. They just all the Samaritans are doing is we. If you need help, we're here.
Yeah, and they're just putting out a statement to saying trans people suffer higher rates than others because of the shit like this blooming Baroness puts us through.
It's like some kind of Darth Maul character turning up. And I mean, it's not even funny. I mean, I'm laughing because I know.
What else can you do?
But it's awful. This is abhorrent. And people like this, what's she called? Baroness Nicholson. Mm-hmm. They should be ashamed. Like this, when I said before about how do they sleep at night, I don't think they do. I think they spend all night going onto charities' websites and Twitter feeds and making stupid comments.
Yeah, pretty much.
Anyway, I hope Samaritans are all right, and I hope they, manage to get more funding out of it. Maybe for the attention.
Everybody, please support the Samaritans.
I did try. I was planning on doing some work for the Samaritans once. I wanted to do it, but it's like I work full time. It's like I'm just a busy girl. But I think the thing is with the Samaritans is if somebody's ringing that is they just. It's not the trans. It's not even about that. If they're not even a trans charity or anything that do anything specifically for trans people. So even if they were, it would still be shit for her to do that. But it's like they've picked the worst. Honestly, they don't have any sense of awareness.
Yeah,
and it's always if you look at the retweets on that, if you look at the quote retweets, which it's all the same.
It's all the same nonsense.
It's all the same nasty kind of trolls that followed Graham Linehan.
There was a study into this, and I think Reuters has done a study. There was an article that they had posted, and within that article, there's links to the study that was done. It was quite a big one. I'm just trying to find it now. It was. It's done in 2018. I've put the link in the notes for today's live, and it's also in the podcast. So if anyone wants to go and read that, you can do. And it shows like all the data behind what Samaritans was saying. So,
right, yeah. Well, I think they're a great organisation, and
Yeah, but she's saying it's not. The Baroness is saying it's not based on fact, but there are the facts right there. So what's she talking about?
Exactly. Yeah.
It's another one of those made up. I'm going to say it's not true because it's a trans story. It's one of those.
Well, it's like in any argument where, we know that there are trans people that are, it's. I know from working with the LGBT Foundation that one of their outreach things is about suicide, and it's not an easy thing to talk about, but it's not uncommon, and I lost a friend that way, and it really pisses me off when people like this have these kind of opinions because they don't know what they're talking about, and it's awful.
So next story. It's a Twitter story.
Another one.
Sir Elton John has quit Twitter, citing misinformation as anti-LGBT hate surges. So Elton John has reportedly had enough of Twitter following a recent change in policy, becoming yet another celebrity to stop using the platform. The singer-songwriter posted a tweet on Friday, 9th of December, outlining his decision to stop using the social media site following its acquisition by Elon Musk. Maybe Elton John should have bought Twitter instead of Elon Musk.
He could afford it.
He probably could.
But it seems to me you lived your life like a candle in the tweets. I do like Elton, I mean, he's. But when did he become the Queen Mother of Pop? That's what I want to know.
I think he's always been the Queen Mother of Pop, hasn't he?
When anybody mentions Elton John to me, I always remember that song he did around the time of when was it, the Olympics or something? I can't remember what it was, and it was like, I was made in England, and there was all these like British flags, and it was so shit. Let's not forget that Elton John has done a lot of crap, but
he's done a lot of good too.
Well, he's a good, whatever. I don't have a lot of love for Elton, to be honest. I find him a bit cringe. But he's a good
I mean,
the
point I'm making is that here's another celeb leaving the platform. He's saying, all my life I've tried to use music to bring people together. It saddens me to see how misinformation is now being used to divide our world. I've decided to no longer use Twitter, given their recent change in policy, which will allow misinformation to flourish unchecked. Yeah, good point.
Let's be realistic, though. Elton John never used Twitter. Elton John had somebody in an office.
I don't know.
Who used Twitter.
I bet he did it himself.
Do you reckon?
I run my own Twitter account, don't you?
Yeah.
I don't have anybody in a little office doing that.
Actually, I don't know. I have somebody.
You got your mum doing yours? Is that what's going wrong? Is your mum doing it?
No, what I'm saying is somebody like Elton John.
I just imagine your mum sat in front of the TV saying in the telly, you think, Freda, what do you want me to say on Twitter tonight? It's like,
well, you know what? I'd never let my mum tweet because some of their opinions, come straight out of the Daily Mail.
I think you should do a test. You should give your Twitter account to your mum for a day, and let's see if we can spot which day it was when it changed.
I'll get banned by Tuesday. You can't say anything anymore. The world's gone mad. Well, yes, it's always been mad.
It's been mad for a while.
But Elton John quitting Twitter isn't really on my radar of things to worry about. I think fuck off, Elton. Get yourself a MySpace.
It's probably going to turn up on Mastodon now.
Well, you see, Elton John is somebody that thrives on publicity and all this business. So as soon as there's a new,
let's face it, he was quite good at it, wasn't he? I mean, he's not failed, has he?
I mean, he's still there.
He's still there. He's still doing. Every new artist that comes out, Elton seems to do a track with them at some point.
But the point is that somebody with the amount of clout as Elton isn't bothered about Twitter, is it? It's not like
No, I'm not sure how many followers he had. Probably quite several million.
It's a weird thing, Twitter, because I love Twitter. The thing I like about Twitter is the immediacy of news. So, like, if something is happening in the world, like there's an event or it could be anything really.
Yeah, you're gonna get 7 billion opinions on it in about 10 seconds.
It's not the opinion that I'm interested in. It's the because I was following, Lisa Set, who was in Ukraine.
Mm-hmm.
And her tweets are amazing, the amount of detail she goes into about, and not just Ukraine. So there are certain journalists on Twitter that are absolutely on point with, and the only way they can get their information out quickly on the ground is through Twitter, and that's the power of Twitter. And Mastodon will never have that. And if anything happens to Twitter, it'll be really sad, because of that.
Well, I'm not sure I agree. I don't really enjoy it at the moment. It's turned nasty. It's not
because of Elon.
Yeah, because of Elon's purchase and changing things, and there's been a massive spike in hatred on there.
Well, if you remember the time when, I don't know if you were ever on MySpace.
No, I wasn't.
But there was a moment in 2006 or 7 when what's it called? Rupert Murdoch bought MySpace, and everybody said, "Oh no, I don't want anything to do with MySpace anymore. Rupert Murdoch owns it," and so there were certain changes. But then the bottom fell out of that.
Yeah, because Facebook came along.
Yeah, but the thing is, the users remain, but they migrated. So I mean, I don't know. I mean, it's different now because.
These social media platforms, I think going forward, you're not going to see the big Twitters and Facebooks in the future. You're going to see lots of smaller kind of platforms which are interconnected more easily.
Well, if you want to talk about, I mean, that's a separate. That might be.
It's like where are we going with social media is probably a different topic completely. But
that's a massive topic. But I remember when I first went online, everybody had their own little page, and I was on Yahoo, and you set up this thing called GeoCities, and you had a little page, and you just linked to who you liked. And I thought that was how it was going to be, where you had your own personal page, which you built yourself, and then you linked through hyperlinks to other people, and then you could join chat groups, and your identity was your own personal page, which you could customize and put anything on there, like a website that is just you. But you're part of a wider network. But the way it works at the moment is you join the site and you don't get to choose what's on it. Do you know what I mean? You are forced to subscribe to.
Yeah, I mean, it's one company that owns the whole thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Mastodon's a bit different because it's like it's different servers owned by different people, and there's no overall ownership. It's fragmented. So it's better in that sense.
That's probably a good thing. But
you can't sell or buy Mastodon. It's it's not owned by anybody. It's a federation of individual server owners, I guess.
Well, it might work, but I've not joined it yet because I don't see the news on it. I don't see the immediate.
Good. I'm enjoying it. I probably won't leave. I probably won't leave Twitter.
Well, I'm interested to see how it goes. I'm not saying I won't join, but I'm waiting to see what happens to Mastodon, because the thing is that imagine if everybody on Twitter migrated there, it would crash.
Well, I mean, in the early days when everybody started leaving, it was crashing on a daily basis because of the mass influx of people. But since then, it's been perfect. They've bought new servers, things have sped up. It's very usable. There's lots of people on there that I know who have moved over, who now have accounts on both.
Well, I mean, you can have an account on both, but what I'm saying is,
I think a lot of people have opened an account and they're kind of in that. Should I go permanently? Am I going to close my Twitter? I'm going to keep both open. They're not quite decided yet.
I wanted to start a protest on Twitter, and I've not really got around to it, and I don't really have the Twitter numbers to do it. But the hashtag was going to be block Elon Musk. So if everybody on Twitter blocked Elon Musk,
yeah,
what would he do? You know, what can he do with that? Because he can't view anybody, and it'd be like being on.
He spent 44 billion, and everybody blocked him. That would be hilarious.
Yeah, so he probably, knowing him, he'd probably just delete the app.
So our next story.
Well, I was just going to say, with Elon Musk, I very much get the feeling that if it's not my ball, I'm not playing.
He's a bit like that, isn't he?
Right,
okay, so this next one is the Kim Kardashian, Kanye West, Balenciaga campaign involving children holding bears in BDSM gear and court documents that mentioned virtual child porn. So you wanted to talk about this one, so
yeah, it's quite a deep. But I think we've already touched on this a little bit because I mentioned Balenciaga. Now, this story really is, it plays into the culture war thing of the idea of groomers and sexual predators, which is part of the QAnon conspiracy theory. And Kanye, unfortunately, seems to have fallen for it, whatever. And he's made a lot of really dubious comments recently. Now, I don't know about Kanye. I think he's got some kind of mental. I used to really like Kanye West. I can't say I like him anymore because of what he's said publicly about Jewish people and what he said about, it's just really nasty, and it's not something I want to be associated with. So where I would have defended him, I find it indefensible. But the problem is the things he's criticizing, like this Balenciaga ad campaign, and it seems a bit incongruous to what Kanye was about, because Kanye was always somebody that championed art. He was always interested in art, and he looked at, things that were abstract.
But wasn't he the person who got Kim Kardashian into being I think she's some kind of celebrity star for the brand, isn't she?
Well, yes, she modelled for
Balenciaga. So I think it was Kanye that got her into it.
Balenciaga have a long history of using contemporary art and what you might call edgy imagery in the kind of promotional things. It's part of the deal. But the thing with this particular advert, which was jarring, was it featured a child and what is considered BDSM imagery, right? So
yeah, I mean, there's no mistaking it. That's exactly what it looks like.
But the BDSM thing, I mean, let's just say one thing straight from the top: no child was harmed in the making of this advert, right? But the message it sends out is problematic, right? But the artistic world in which that exists is, like I said before, about the idea of postmodernism and the idea of recycling images, and there's a sort of edgelordery, if you know what I mean by that. Edgelord, like the idea that like it's just there to shock, but you've got to have some other substance there. It doesn't work as an advert for clothing. It doesn't work as an advert for anything if there's no other context for it. So I've seen a lot of right-wing commentators talk about this.
Tucker Carlson did a whole episode on it, almost.
Yeah, and they talk about other artists. Now, when you look at artists like Tracy Emin, and when you look at artists like the Chapman Brothers, who use, I would call it not dubious, but it's kind of jarring imagery of children, and it's kind of sex, and they're not doing it because what the art criticizes is the moral outrage that those things cause, and there's a long tradition of that in contemporary art and in in classical art. But in the modern era, because let me take it back to, have you heard of Marcel Duchamp? and he did a famous sculpture called Fountain, and the fountain is just a urinal. Now, the point of that is it's not to do anything other than to challenge the idea of what is beauty and what is art and what is this or what is that. Because when you do that, you challenge the idea of perception. So the whole mission of contemporary art from that point was to challenge the idea of a bourgeois conservatism, and that feeds into, because in the mid, in the fascist era, like say the Nazi Party, they had this idea of degenerate art. So degenerate art was anything that the Nazis didn't like, basically. So it could, and Picasso was part of that degenerate art. So that's why this kind of art is always challenging to a kind of conservatism, as a kind of, is to say that, look, we will push it. We will push the idea of what is acceptable, because there has to be a political reason for it. And I mean, there's the imagery around the Balenciaga advert. I mean, it is a bit, I'm not going to defend it, but it's not, nobody was hurt, and there's a lot of child models in contemporary fashion that, there's probably a whole thing you could look at there about why there are children modeling, and there's a whole you could probably look at that and question the whole thing. But the Balenciaga part is not the worst bit of it, right? But this has become a thing because, and I think it feeds into this idea of, that kind of libs of TikTok.
Yeah.
And that whole thing of, oh, look at what these idiots are doing, look at what these perverts are doing over here.
Yeah, that's exactly what goes on in Tucker Carlson's show that he does.
Exactly. So it makes a stage for a kind of carnival of, because they can associate it with that like this liberal leftist kind of, this is the way it's going. We want your children to be corrupted, and it's like, no, it's not really that.
But I mean, it fits in perfectly with that kind of storyline, doesn't it?
Yeah, but there's a tradition of art where the point is to shock, not necessarily shock, but to criticize.
Fox News, Tucker Carlson, his headline was "Kids and Bondage in Latest Balenciaga Ad." So
yeah, but it's not.
So the company themselves have put out a statement, and I'll just read it to you. They say, "We sincerely apologise for any offence our holiday campaign may have caused. Our plush bear bags should not have been featured with children in this campaign. We have immediately removed the campaign from all platforms." And then they went on to put a second note out. "We apologise for displaying upsetting documents in our campaign. We take this matter very seriously and are taking legal action against the parties responsible for creating the set and including unapproved items for our Spring 23 campaign photo shoot. We strongly condemn abuse of children in any form, and we stand for children's safety and well-being." And then, Kim Kardashian has put out some statements too. She's been saying, I'll just read those as well while I'm at it.
Well, Kim Kardashian will just want to distance herself.
Yeah, that's exactly what she's doing. She's saying, "I have been quiet for the past few days, not because I haven't been disgusted and outraged by the recent Balenciaga campaigns, but because I wanted an opportunity to speak to their team to understand for myself how this could have happened. As a mother of 4, I have been shaken by the disturbing images. The safety of children must be held with the highest regard, and any attempts to normalise child abuse of any kind should have no place in our society." She said something else too as well. For my future with Balenciaga, I am currently reevaluating my relationship with the brand, basing it off their willingness to accept accountability for something that should never have happened to begin with, and the actions I am expecting to see them take to protect children. So,
Well, the problem with that is, it's all very well for Kim to do that now, but she was very much complicit in the promotion of that. Now whether there is any problem with it is irrelevant, to that, because what she's doing there is somebody sent her she's had a briefing, right? And she said, "Look, Kim, you know, if you wanna be careful, you know, you've got a distance." It's a purely, as far as Kim Kardashian is concerned, that's a purely marketing exercise.
Yeah, it's damage control.
But yeah, exactly, it's damage limitation. But the thing is, and there are worse things out there than Balenciaga doing a photo shoot with a child with some handcuffs, right? I don't care, right, about that. I just think that this has become a thing
it's the thing that I think is really obvious is the way the story is used by Tucker Carlson's side of the argument. You know, it's like it's taken at face value, and here's the story, and it's all bad. You know, that's probably the thing that we need to talk about. You know,
I'll tell you something though.
How and why the story is out there, and why it's used, how it's used.
There's always been this thing with the right wing. Well, I use the right wing loosely, but do you know, like a sort of conservative press where anything in modern art is like, oh my god, look at what this idiot's doing. I could have done that. That's what my child could have done. And there's always been this thing about art. And now, whether the difference now is with the Balenciaga thing, it's not necessarily art, is it? It's an advert.
It's an advert.
Now we go back, when you can go back to adverts, because we were talking about, when we were talking about adverts before with the
Christmas ad. I'm not sure if this wasn't a Christmas ad. I think it was an ad for a campaign that's coming later.
No, but what I'm saying is it's about emotional manipulation.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
And those people like Tucker Carlson have unknowingly been emotionally manipulated by Balenciaga, and it's the same mechanism. Nobody's been hurt. Nobody's, I'm sure there are. I'm not saying that abuses don't happen in the modelling industry. I'm sure they do, but as an event, that is not important in the great scheme of things. It's just something that Tucker Carlson and all those kind of people can. So yeah,
it's just another story that they've jumped on.
Exactly, and if there was any. I can guarantee you now, like, if there was any real, we know about the modelling industry. We know it's not ethical, is it?
I mean, if
something
had happened to the kids in that shoot, we would have heard about that, wouldn't we?
Oh, I'd like to think so. But then again, when you look at that image, it is a bit shit, isn't it? It is
a bit shit. Yeah, they could have done a lot better. I think they.
And it makes you
whoever
think,
chose to do that.
It's that edgelord
needs to rethink.
Kind of, it's that idea that you're pushing the envelope of acceptability, but you're pushing it in a way that is just purely vacuous. That's the problem, and not art is not supposed to do that. Art, I mean, whatever art is, it's not selling shoes. Maybe it is, I don't know.
Okay, so on the theme of art, our last story is the Turner Prize 2022. So this is at the Tate Liverpool. It's an exhibition going on until March. I think the story around this is, I don't think it's really anything to do with trans, but the Turner Prize jury has shortlisted a group of women and non-binary artists for the prestigious Art Award, and I think 1 out of 4 of those listed has now been declared the winner. I'm not sure who it was, but when I first when you first kind of brought this story to my attention, I was thinking, oh, what does this mean? Is this shortlist of women, does that include trans women? But but then looking at the story in more depth, it's just a list that happens to be 3 women and 1 non-binary person. There's nothing to do with trans,
No, I didn't want to include it. It's not necessarily a trans story.
No.
I'm just really happy that the whole what happened in the press was I love anything to do with contemporary art, right, basically. And I've been following Heather Phillipson and Ingrid Pollard and Veronica Ryan, who won it. Ryan.
So the 4 names were Heather Phillipson, Ingrid Pollard, Veronica Ryan, and Sin Wai Kin.
Yeah. So Veronica Ryan won it, and she makes art out of like found objects and what she calls rubbish, basically, and she makes pieces out of that, sculptural pieces. But what was interesting to me was in the press that there was this discourse about why is there no men in the shortlist?
Well,
You know,
because they didn't do anything any good, obviously.
well, that was what Holly Johnson, who presented the awards, said. You know, maybe there just wasn't any men that were good enough this year, which is, you know, always great thing to say. And then Sin Joaquin is a registered. Well, she put herself down as non-binary, so it wasn't an all-female shortlist in that sense. But the work is great, and I just wanted to include this because, you know, after the Balenciaga story, I wanted to talk about how modern art,
so yeah,
contemporary art,
a more positive story.
It's a beautiful, positive story, and this exhibition is on at the Tate Liverpool now until March, and I want to go and see it, and I just think it, you know, because I'm going to write about it and I'm going to do a review of it, and I want to talk about it. But the thing is with this, you know, the themes of the artists are very much about, you know, personal experience and the body, and, you know, being like you know, when people talk about identity politics, this is like the expression of those identities in a very visual way. So I think that's why I wanted to include it. And
I mean, I'm just looking. I've got it on my other screen here. I've just the 4 exhibits. They all do look absolutely amazing.
Yeah.
I've put the link in the notes if anybody wants to have a look. So are we going to go, Freda? Are we going to go and have a look?
We're going to go and have a look, yeah. But it's going to be next year now, I think, because I've got so little free time off work. But yeah, I'll do it. Yeah, I just think, you know, it's like when anything to do with contemporary art is always kind of poo-pooed by, you know, the kind of people like, you know, the Daily Mail, and you know, they love to mock anything that challenges their perception of what is beauty or what is, you know, acceptable. And I think, you know, it's good to, you know, exhibit that, you know, it's just good to talk about, because, I mean, you don't have to like everything that you see, but you've got to have an open mind. And
the Tate at Liverpool, I mean, I've recently been there because I went the day after we were at the NDA Awards, that, you know, the event we did in September. So I went into Liverpool and I went to the Tate because when the Albert Dock area opened, I don't know, I guess it was back in the 90s, was it? That was the one thing I never got to see before I went over to the States. So I was kind of, okay, so I'm in Liverpool, I need to go and see this. So I went around the Tate. It was, I tell you, it was really nice. It's amazing.
And they've got a nice calf.
They've got a lovely calf, and I had some chips in the calf. It was really nice.
Well, they say, like, sometimes I always joke that sometimes the best part of the museum is the cafe, the gift shop.
The gift shop and the cafe next to it. Yeah. That's exactly right.
Yeah.
So yeah, we'll go.
Yeah, we'll go, and maybe we'll meet a few friends in Liverpool. I want to see Joss. Who she's listening? Don't think she. But well, we covered quite a lot of stuff there, didn't we?
We had a big list tonight. Yes.
Oh my god. Well, the thing is, like,
once again, we had some technical issues at the beginning. Sorry if you had problems listening to us.
I could talk for hours about art and postmodernism and all that, but I don't think anybody's interested.
Yeah, we're not as sophisticated as you, Freda. So, you know.
Nobody's as sophisticated as me. No, the thing is, I'm not. I mean, don't know if that's sophisticated, but there's nothing sophisticated about these ideas. It's just like, to me, like, the way I describe it is, if you can't understand it, it's art. Like, you know, when people talk about
this is art.
Do you know when people say what is art? That's the same question as what is a woman, because contained within that question.
Okay, there's a message just popped up from Sarah Warner. Best part of Tate is the members' cafe.
All right, well, I'll definitely be a member. Well, thank you. Was it Sarah? Yeah. Well, we're gonna. I think. Are we done? I'm really tired.
Well, I'm not finished my time yet. Keep talking until I finish my time.
Oh, well, anyway, so yeah, well, I think the next, well, maybe we should do a live podcast from
the
the Tate
Tate?
Gallery.
Do you think they'll let us
Yeah.
do that? We could, if we made ourselves into an exhibit. You mean? We could sit in the corner in
definitely.
one of those big rooms upstairs and do a live pod.
Well, one of my ambitions is to do one of my poetry things in an art gallery. So I want to do, with my megaphone.
In the art gallery.
Yeah. So we're going to do that next year. It might not be the Tate.
In a soundproof room.
Yeah, we'll find somewhere I can recite. Did you see me TikTok today?
No, I've not been on TikTok today. I'm not a TikToker.
You just don't care. You just don't care, Victoria.
I don't do TikTok.
I did a recital.
I'm too old for TikTok, isn't it, for kids?
I did a recital of running up that hill.
All right. Well, send me the video, and I'll do a critical analysis of it for you.
Right. Enjoy your tart.
It was
I meant
delicious.
enjoy your tart.
Okay, so I think we're done there, aren't we?
I think I've got a headache now after all that.
We're way
Talk
over
about
an hour and a half.
Balenciaga, Kanye West.
We've made our poor viewers watch us for an hour and a half. Can you imagine? They must have better things to do than watching this. It's, haven't they got Christmas presents to wrap and stuff,
What's on tally? I'm
It's only
gonna
the
chill
football.
now.
It's only the football.
Oh, well, we've lost that.
We did. Anyway.
Oh, that was heartbreaking, wasn't it?
I didn't watch it. I did say to you that I'm only going to watch it if we get to the final. And it looks like France.
I had
prevented us.
£100 on that, and I lost it.
Oh, well, that's worse than them actually losing. You lost money.
Right. So anyway, thanks for listening.
Yeah, thanks for listening.
Thanks for listening to me going on about art and nonsense. And don't forget to subscribe.
Please subscribe.
Subscribe. Please share, and maybe we'll get more viewers. What else did I want to say? I'd like to thank God and my mum and the family. Thank you.
And you'd like to thank Vicky too?
Yeah, well, that goes without saying.
Yeah, well, yeah. Is that why you didn't say it? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
I'd like to thank Freda, but she reluctantly thanked me, so I won't. Okay. Thank you, Freda. Thank you for being my co-host. Yeah.
Thank you for tolerating me.
Okay, I'm going to stop the streaming before we descend into a deeper rabbit hole than we've already descended into.
Yeah. Let's go. Bye.